Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Delta Class DX-9 Stormtrooper transport. This is an assault vessel built by Telegram Corporation, which was designed to carry Imperial Stormtroopers into battle. So, the characteristics that we have listed here from the Wikipedia page: the Delta 9 class DX-9 was armed with 8 KT-4 laser cannons, 4 ion cannons, and two projectile launchers that were usually loaded with proton torpedoes. These weapons allowed the DX-9 to disable and board targets with light to moderate defenses. Very strong shielding, particularly forward for the vessel, allowed the transport to weather considerable resistance from its targets. A universal docking mechanism allowed the DX-9 to attach itself to most ships, and if necessary, the transport could also bore its own hole into an enemy hull. So the DX-9 only had weapons on its forward arc and was not very maneuverable, so it was vulnerable to starfighter attack. These transports were usually deployed with fighter escorts as part of a larger assault force. History wise, listed here, the Stormtrooper transport saw a great deal of action during the Galactic Civil War, not only for boarding operations and deploying troops into battle, but also as a personal transport for use between starships. It could also be used to resupply bombers and repair other craft. Omega and Sigma were notable Imperial teams for the DX-9 that participated in many missions. Although designed for the Galactic Empire, many DX-9s were also often used by other factions, most notably the Rebel Alliance. The Empire eventually developed a successor to the Delta class, the Gamma class ATR 6 assault transport. The larger ATR 6 lacked frontal laser cannons, instead having laser turrets to cover firing arcs that were blind spots on the DX-9. The Imperial Navy continued to use the Delta class for most assault and boarding operations, turning to the Gamma class if necessary, especially heavy opposition was expected. A further development was the Beta class ETR-3 escort transport, which combined the DX-9's frontal weaponry with the ATR-6's turrets. In 6 ABY, one of these transports was deployed by forces of Admiral Devla, based on Velget, against rogue squadrons based on Talassa. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. If I'm not, I'm sorry. Following the failure of that surprise covert assault, the transport was captured by New Republic forces in 10 ABY during the Battle of Altair 5. DX-9s deployed stormtroopers against the New Republic base on Altair 5. Behind the scenes, though, the Star Wars TIE Fighter, in Star Wars TIE Fighter, the DX-9 is known as simply the Transport, or TRN. However, official strategy guides have referred to it as the Stormtrooper Transport to avoid confusion with other craft in or with similar functions. And it adopted the latter name for the latter titles in the series. In the Star Wars TIE Fighter, as well as the Star Wars X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter and Star Wars X-Wing Alliance, the Airbash symbols NGC were found on the backside of the ship. An unidentified ship greatly resembling the DX-9 transport appeared in Star Wars Annual 2015, a canon one-shot comic published by Marvel Comics back in December of 2015. So, all the different appearances we have are Farsighter's papers, Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars TIE Fighter, the Steel Chronicles, Star Wars X-Wing Alliance, Star Wars X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, and then we also have the Balance of Power campaigns. X-Wing Rogue Squadron, and unabridged audiobooks, Star Wars Jedi Knight, Dark Forces, and Mysteries of the Sith. So let's see. That would mean that a lot of these Imperial Sourcebook second edition, which was a West End Games book, which is where I was really kind of trying to get all the way back to. All right, an interesting ship, a great different set of possibilities of what it can be used for, whether it's just landing troops onto the ground or boarding them onto other starships. So, with this, let's get over to our D6 stats and see what we have here today. All right, so the Stormtrooper Transport Telgron Corporation DX9 Transport. Of course, this is a line for the Empire. This comes from the era of Rise of the Empire, and it's an assault fighter slash gunboat. Has a length of about 20 meters. It does have a crew of 2 and 3 gunners. Let's see, our standard crew skills would be an astrogation of 3D. Starship gunnery is going to be 4D plus 1. Space transports is a 4D. Space Starship shields is 3D, and sensors is a 3D skill. Passengers, we're looking at about 40 stormtroopers and about 60 metric tons of cargo. We do have about 2 months worth of consumables on board. It's not available for sale, but rumors have it you can find it on the black market for about 575,000 credits. Has a hyperdrive multiplier of 2. Nav computer is on board. Maneuverability is 2D, and our space speed is 6, which does give it an atmospheric speed of 850 kilometers an hour. We do have a hull strength of 5D and shield strength of 2D plus 2. So it is fairly resilient, and the shields are above average. Now, keep in mind, um, we can always bump this up a little bit because this is really going all the way around. So if you really wanted to take away from the back, you could almost bump that up. This is where that shield roll really comes in. And I'll be honest, most of the time, I consider a lot of these ships just like what we're used to seeing in Star Trek. The shields go up, it's a big bubble that goes around it, and I don't really worry too much about all of our shields. And even in the Star Trek sense, you can see or say there's a shield modulation, so you can always keep trying to rotate your shields around so you can keep adding a little extra here and there. So if you really wanted to, you could leave the back down to like just a +2 and maybe bump up the shields in the front to possibly a 4D. Something I don't typically think of. I just throw it out there as a nice, easy number, and I just go from there. Uh, that's just me being me. But if you're throwing it out there in the sense and the way it's written up, yes, you could. Do I typically do it like I just said? No, I don't. Uh, but it's things that can be done in a game that quite often I just avoid. I like to keep things very nice and simple. Always, and I've said this many times before, I always err on the side of my player characters. I want them to have fun. I don't care about you know the enemy stats as much. I just want the guys to have fun, so that way we keep playing and everyone's just enjoying the game. So you can wrong me in all the regards and that, but that's fine. It's the guys know I like to keep them going. The crazy stuff that we do. All right, looking at our sensor packet here. We do have passive scanning out to 3 kilometers with a 1D bonus. We have an active scan out to 6 kilometers with a 2D bonus. An active search out to 8 kilometers with a 3D bonus. And a focus out to 400 meters at a 4D bonus. We do have the 2 quad laser cannons listed. That is 1 crew. Let's see, fire control is 2D, damage is 6D. Does not say that these are fire linked, so that means that that's the 2 of them individually. We also have quad ion cannon, and that's a fire control of 2D and damage of 5D. Let's see. Then, last but not least, we have the two proton torpedo launchers. These may be linked. Let's see. Fire control is 2D and damage is 9D. Now, one of the nice things that we have here, besides having a very cool picture to be able to look at and say, this is what it represents, is we do have an interior uh, floor plan here. And it is interesting that we have that straight shot going all the way through. So if you're landing everyone onto the ground, we do have a forward assault airlock uh, that we can just kind of land onto the ground. Everyone can get through. We have our control room off on the, and if I get these backwards, I'm sorry, on the port side, um, or on the left side here. That's our pilot and co-pilot or navigator, what have you. And on the other side, on the right-hand side, there is our control room 2, which is probably different um, computer modules and everything else for trying to operate the ship. Now, inside, we do have all of the seating here for 40 stormtroopers, as well as magnetic clamps, ventral assault airlock. We have, let's see, in the rear, in a rear assault airlock as well. So if they land onto the ground, you can open all the doors and they can get out one way or the other. In the middle, we have plenty of room for speeder bikes or what else have you. Um, the other thing that was written up about this is this could also be a personnel transport for stormtroopers or other low rank officers when you're going back and forth between ships. So if you have to move cargo from, say, a cargo ship or whatever to your Star Destroyer or other Imperial vessel, we can easily land this onto the ship's hangar bay, unload all the supplies to continue on with our missions, and go from there. Much like today's Navy, where yes, we do have supply vessels, and then they're using cables that go back and forth to resupply the ships. So, it's interesting how we can do that in today's Navy, and we've been doing this for quite a while. And we're going to use a transport like this to do the same mission. So, with that being said, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's always wonderful having you here. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next video.